I'm Dr. Tim Pehl. I've been a physician at Grand Itasca for 14 years. My wife and I moved here right out of our residency training. We love it here. I belong to the Y. You know, sometimes you might see me. I mostly play racquetball. I have quite a few side interests. I do like food and nutrition. I like learning about food and nutrition. I like cooking. I try to do most of the cooking in our house, and my wife likes that. So we're going to talk tonight about weight loss, and this is going to be, fairly basic. So some of you may have heard some of this stuff before. It might be new to other people. Hopefully, you'll walk away with maybe one or two tidbits. So some of the very simple concepts we're going to start off with is just basics of counting calories. I'm going to talk about some options that you have for losing weight. We're going to talk a little bit about how weight has changed throughout the last mostly 100 years. Some of the things that have led to that change, the massive epidemic in obesity that we're seeing. And then we're going to talk about ways to feel empowered to make changes in your lives. All of what I'm going to talk about is going to be based on a lot of scientific research. So it's going to be stuff that's sort of been validated with research. And it's often a little bit different than what people expect when they come to see me about weight loss. And a lot of times when they come to see me, they're coming to see me for something other than weight loss. But it seems to always get back to that being one of the root problems. My back hurts, my knees hurt. That kind of thing. I have diabetes. Okay, so at the turn of the last century, Americans, for the most part, lived on farms. They spent a lot of their time outside. Even if they didn't live on farms and they were working for money and not working directly for their food, the average American spent about 1/3 of their daily efforts in getting their food. And if you go back even farther than that, back further in time, our cave people ancestors spent almost all their time trying to procure food. They were out chasing it around. Our food doesn't run away from us anymore. So now, people talk about how expensive food is. We went from spending 1/3 of our daily efforts to now, on average, 5% of our daily efforts just getting food. So actually, in a 100-year time span, we spend a lot less money, effort, energy in getting our food. Food's never been cheaper. I also think that one of the modern miracles of society right now is a grocery store. You can walk in a grocery store in Grand Rapids in the middle of December and buy fresh cherries. That's, if you would talk to the generation above us and ask them if that would have been possible when they were 20 years old, they would have thought you were crazy. Along with this, portions have changed really dramatically. Just a few examples. That first one is a movie theater popcorn. 5 cups, 720 calories. Today, a tub is 630. I would say that's probably underestimated. The large tubs, especially with butter, easily can push 1,000 to 2,000 calories. Cheeseburger, 20 years ago, 330 calories. Today, 590. Again, I don't want to pick on any certain restaurants, but there is a cheeseburger at a local food chain that is near Home Depot that if you eat the entire meal, it's over 2,000 calories. So that's with the pop that comes with it and the French fries, but it's a quesadilla burger. So some people think, hey, I'm not eating the bun, but boy, the cheese on that really kills it too. Slice of pizza, 20 years ago, 500 calories. Today, 850. Restaurants are really killing us to some degree. So the amount of food eaten in a single meal in a restaurant in the U.S. is the same volume of food that feeds an entire family of 4 in China. So this is affecting our children, of course, and there are a number of experts that are predicting this will be the first generation of children who are likely to not outlive their parents as far as total life expectancy. So it's one thing when adults are deciding to do this, but this is really extending well beyond. This is the future of our society, and it's not just our country either. As other countries get more affluent and more wealthy, they're experiencing all the same problems that we are experiencing. We just happen to be a little bit ahead of it. But I use that China example, but even China is starting to see a lot of obesity as they're becoming more affluent. This is a fancy formula that nobody needs to memorize because I don't have it memorized, but when you come to the doctor now, we talk a lot about body mass index, or BMI, and that is a way to measure the ratio of your height to your weight, basically. And it's a little bit more accurate picture of your overall health. It's not the only picture of your overall health, but this gives us a rough idea. So if you come in and your BMI is under 18.5, I'm actually going to talk to you about gaining weight. You know, if you're a teenage girl, I'm going to talk to you about eating disorder kind of questions. If you're actually, if you're over 65 and you're below that, I'm going to talk to you about gaining weight too, because for the elderly population, there are a lot of health problems that are related to being underweight. Normal weight is considered 18.5 to 24.9. Overweight is 25 to 30, basically. And then anything 30 and above for your BMI is considered obese. People will argue with this. You know, they'll come in and say, but I work out at the Y all the time, and I'm all muscle, and I have 2% body fat. Usually they're lying. They don't have 2% body fat. But these are general terms, and they are generally linked to worsening health outcomes. So if your body mass index is 28, are you as healthy as a person who has a body mass index of 22? No, you're actually not as healthy. Are you in as bad shape as somebody who has a body mass index of 40 or 50? No, you're not. You know, think of it almost like blood pressure. A little bit high, it's not good for you, but you know, it's not the end of the world. But if you get really high, then we start getting more worried. Another thing that I see a lot of people getting in their minds is I'm all muscle, and everybody in my family is big boned. And believe me, I've looked at a lot of CAT scans, and everybody's bones are pretty much the same size. They all weigh about the same too. Yeah, so this is really maps out the obesity epidemic state by state, and basically when you go from 1990 up to 2010, there is not a state that doesn't have a problem when it comes down to it. It's estimated that 65 to 80% of our country is either overweight or obese. So this isn't just, if you get a chance, I want to put this in the slide, but there were confidentiality problems, but if you get a chance, when you're at the high school, walk through the trophy case and look at the basketball teams and the football teams, and go back to 1970, go back to 1980 even, and then compare them to the ones now. And certainly the kids have gotten a lot taller, but they've also gotten a lot bigger around too. So when we can't talk about weight without talking about energy, because that's really what this all comes down to. Energy that you take in comes in three forms. Alcohol is one of them, but we're not going to talk about that, because if that's your only form of energy, you got another problem altogether. So there are three main sources of energy. Every meal that you eat is going to be made up of usually a combination of carbohydrates, protein, and fat. And the carbohydrates and protein have fewer calories per volume than the fat does. And fat is really doesn't have much else going for it other than it's just a lot of energy. When you look at losing weight, and basically, this refers also to the food that you're taking in, but this is how much space 1 pound of fat takes up, and this is how much space 1 pound of muscle takes up. So you can see the volume of this it's about 1/3. So the fat in your body takes up a lot of extra space, adds a lot of inches to your belly. It's very calorie dense. So that's really what we want to focus on. That's what we want you to lose. We don't want you to lose protein. That would be muscle mass. A calorie is just another way to measure energy. This is just kind of a basic science. And this is probably the most important slide. If you could only walk away with one thing today, this is the most important one. In general, 3,500 calories equals 1 pound of fat. So in order to lose 1 pound of fat, you have to remove 3,500 calories from your diet, from your body. Our bodies are designed to be in absolutely perfect balance. So the amount of energy you put in, the amount of energy that you put out, it is always in perfect balance. Anything that you have left over is going to be stored up in fat. So the idea is to tip that balance a little bit. the average man, and this varies a little bit based on your age, but the average man needs about 2,400 calories a day to just do basic things. You know, power your brain, walk, just kind of live. The average female needs about 2,000 calories a day. So in order to get this deficit, this 3,500 calorie deficit, we have to pull back on that. And what we generally recommend is losing about one pound a week is about healthy. 2 pounds is really pushing it, and anything more than 2 pounds, and you're actually really unlikely to keep that weight off. If a female needs 2,000 calories a day, 3,500 calorie deficit over 7 days would be pulling 500 calories a day out of that woman's diet. That will, in general, result in 1 pound of fat loss a week. The other thing that you can do is increase the calories that are going out. So you can focus on what you're eating and cut back on the calories you're putting in your body, and you can counteract that with activity, exercise, et cetera, et cetera. So the basic principle is you have to eat less and you have to move more. And if that's not working, you have to go back and eat less and move more. So safe, sustainable weight loss is 1 pound a week. So that's 3,500 calories a day. The faster you lose weight, the less likely you're going to keep it off. And I'm a primary care doctor, and I don't care just about where you are right now. I care about where you're going to be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or more. So what I'm really about is not just the short term, but also the long term, which involves not just going on a diet, but changing your diet, changing the way you eat, changing why you eat, how you eat, and then changing the way that you move. The other thing that is really important to realize is the energy that you spend, the majority of the energy that you take in actually is going to fuel your brain. Your brain chews up about 25% of those calories that I was talking about. It's just fuel for the brain. When you go for a walk, you burn 50 calories a mile. That's not very much. And people come in and say, boy, I'm exercising, and say, well, it all depends how much you're doing, how often you're doing it, and how fast you're doing it. So if you want to run, you can burn 100 calories a mile. But remember, a man needs 2,400 calories a day to survive. 3,500 calories is a pound of fat. So if you run a marathon, you burn 2,400, what is a marathon, 24 miles? 26. So you burn 2,600 calories running a marathon. That's not even 1 pound of fat. So I think of these in terms of Oreo cookies. A lot of people will exercise and then say, well, I exercised today, so I can have an Oreo cookie. You can have an Oreo cookie, and if that's only going to be one, that's great. But if you just ran for 5 miles, you just spent 20% of that running on one Oreo cookie. I don't eat Oreo cookies. I don't like them. I love cookies, but I'll eat a homemade cookie that tastes really good, but I'm not going to waste it on a store-bought. So these are kind of, when I found these, I was kind of shocked. Yeah. So the average Thanksgiving meal is 4,500 calories. So that's close to like 2 marathons. The average Christmas meal is 7,000 calories. And I don't know if these people, they must be spending like 4 hours straight eating or something. Well, we've got some samples and we'll go through it, but there are some things that really blow your budget at holiday time. The other thing too, if you're trying to lose weight and you're not losing weight, a lot of times I see that people aren't actually being honest with themselves about what they're eating. So if you're at work and there's a bowl of M&Ms there, and believe me, your body is a perfect, tally of all the calories you put in. Every time you walk by, if you have 2 M&Ms, at the end of the day, you might have consumed 400 or 500 calories in M&Ms. If I've had people that don't count the cream and sugar that they put in their coffee every day. I did have a patient that lost 50 pounds simply by not putting cream and sugar in her coffee. That's the only thing she did. Took her a little over a year to do it, and she was drinking about 2 pots of coffee a day. But that one change is all it took for her to lose that weight. So when you're thinking about Thanksgiving and Christmas too, I love sweet potatoes. They're unbelievably healthy for you. They're full of a lot of great vitamins. They're full of fiber, and they're actually filling and pretty low in calories. So a whole baked sweet potato is 100 calories, and when you start putting in the butter and the brown sugar, and I just saw the FDA last week made some new recommendations on added sugar. One can of Coke now has more added sugar than what the FDA recommends for your entire day. I don't drink Coke either. Steamed green beans, again, another great food source. 30 calories, a lot of fiber, a lot of protein actually in beans. And a green bean casserole, you mix it in with the Campbell's soup and put some onions on top, you have added 200 calories to that 30 calories. Well, that's sort of the problem. Actually, somebody said that's what makes it so good. Part of the problem is, in the 70s and 80s, we really got worried about fat, and everybody worried about the fat that you're eating, and people are dying of heart attacks. And the issue is that as humans, we really crave flavor, So if you're not eating fat, what's next? Well, they add sugar, and you're going to the grocery store and you're buying the low fat or no fat. Fill in the blank. It's salad dressing or everything. I remember, God, I think I saw an apple once that said no fat, and it's like, well, there's never been fat in an apple. But so we've really switched really heavy over to the sugar, and we're seeing a lot of diabetes problems now as a result of that cultural shift. Another thing to bear in mind is a lot of people will approach weight and weight loss as a failure of themselves. And it really is not. It goes so far beyond that. It's the way our society is designed. It's grocery stores. The closer you live to a grocery store, the less likely you are to be obese. The more often you go to a grocery store, the less likely you are to be obese. So the idea of going to Sam's Club and buying a whole pallet of Campbell's soup, what are you going to do with that? Well, you're going to eat it even though you're not hungry because the due date's coming up, and So here's some basics for losing weight. These are things that you can do some of them, you can do all of them, you can do none of them. Simply counting your calories and keeping a diary of doing that. This is pretty important because, one, if you're going to come see me or if you're going to come see a dietitian or a nutritionist, we're going to want to know, well, what do you eat? If you're drinking a six-pack of beer every day, we want to know that, and people aren't typically willing to admit that right up front, but that counts. That six-pack of beer is at least 600 calories, even if it's light beer. Keeping a food log, when you start doing this, almost everybody starts eating differently because all of a sudden they're becoming aware. They're looking it up. You can get apps that count your calories for you. You can look up any food you can come up with. If you give me an internet connection in about 30 seconds, I can tell you the calories there. You also have to be real honest with yourself on portion sizes. Because that's another big one, where people will say, well, I looked it up on the internet and it said the spaghetti was 100 calories, but if you take 4 scoops of spaghetti, it's not 100 calories anymore. It really pays to find supportive friends and family. So if this is a family, it's a society issue. So if you're the only one in your family that wants to make major changes and nobody else does, it's going to be really hard to do it. If you come in and you're obese or overweight and you're worried that your kids are the same, and you want to do something, you've got to do it for the whole family. You can't go to the grocery store, come home with a six-pack of Coke, and not expect the 12-year-olds to drink the six-pack of Coke. And believe me, I knew where Grandma's cookies were hidden. Drink lots of water. This is a really big one, too. As we age, we lose our thirst mechanism. It's part of just like your hearing starts to decline, your vision starts to go. This is another one of the nervous system problems, and most people I see over age 65 are dehydrated. When we do their labs, they're dehydrated. We often put you on medicine that dehydrates you further. But a lot of times what you're feeling is not hunger, but it's actually thirst. And if you drink the water, give it some time, settle in, and if you're still hungry, then okay, then move on. Water can get boring after a while. You can put in a lemon wedge or a lime wedge, or there are all kinds of no sugar additives. I do see people that are drinking sports drinks, and they think that that's a safe alternative. They're actually one of the leading sources now of added sugar. Eat lots of fruits and vegetables. So this doctors have probably been saying this forever, and I don't think we're going to change our tune on this one. Fruits and vegetables are full of all kinds of great vitamins, nutrients. fiber. I mean, pretty much everything you need, short of sometimes getting the protein is a little bit tough if you're doing just fruits and vegetables. The guidelines now are, to try to get 5 servings a day. The research shows, I think, less than 5% of Americans actually reach that. So if you focus your time on getting the fruits and vegetables, your stomach's going to be full because it takes up a lot of space, and they taste good. And again, this gets back to the miracle of modern grocery stores. In Grand Rapids in 2015, the number of fruits and vegetables you can buy is just absolutely astounding. I just recently saw this one. This was interesting. So a lot of people will approach weight loss from a negative thinking standpoint. Like, what are all the things I can't eat? And human nature being what it is, if you're telling yourself, boy, I can't eat that ice cream day after day, guess what? In about a week, all you're going to crave is that ice cream. And what you're going to do, you're going to be hungry for that ice cream. You're going to go to the refrigerator, you're going to open it up, and the carrots are looking at you. You're like, well, the doc said I should eat carrots. So you're going to eat the carrots, and then you're going to sit down for a few minutes. You're going to say, but I still want that ice cream. You're going to go back, and then you're going to see the leftover chicken breast from last night. You're going to eat that. And then you're going to sit down, and you're still going to want the ice cream. So really, if you're trying to deny yourself, it actually is better off to just say, I know that I love ice cream, so instead of eating a whole tub of Haagen-Dazs, or instead of eating one bowl every night, I'm going to have half a scoop every other day. So you find ways to work it into what you really want to do. But this study showed if you can get at least 45 grams of fiber in a day, so this is a positive thing. This is go out there and read labels and eat 45 grams of fiber every day. 1, you'll feel full. 2, your risk of heart disease and your risk of colon cancer is going to drop. And 3, you're going to be so busy looking for that you're not going to realize that you're not eating the ice cream. This is a really tricky way, though, to get you to eat fruits and vegetables, because that's where most of the fiber comes from. There are, of course, apps out there that actually do work. And here are just a few that are out there. I don't really have a favorite one. The best one is the one that you decide to use. Just like I don't have a favorite diet, the best one is the one that you can stick with for the rest of your life, actually. Why should you lose weight? I can think of tons of reasons, but certainly back pain, knee pain, every extra pound of weight you're carrying around when you take a step is a hammering effect on your knee joint that's magnified 8 times. So for every pound of weight you lose, you're taking 8 pounds of weight off your knees. And really, when you start to lose weight, we recommend starting with a 5 or 10 pound goal. If you lose 10 pounds, because that's a reasonable goal. A lot of people will look in the mirror and say, God, I wish I looked like I did when I was 18. Don't. That's not going to happen. But if you lose 10 pounds and you just took 80 pounds of force off your knees every time you walk. And I literally have patients that know down to the pound what their weight is based on their knee pain. Diabetes, it's estimated half of baby boomers are going to end up with diabetes before they die. That doesn't have to happen, but the weight epidemic is really one of the key drivers to that one. And weight losses and diet changes are the primary treatment for diabetes once you get it. And believe me, nobody really wants diabetes. Actually, lower risk of cancer. So we're seeing more cancers related to the obesity epidemic. Breast cancer is the one that comes to mind particularly. And a lot of women don't realize that, but when you're looking at breast cancer screening and your breast cancer risk factors, and they're often talking to me about their family history. Well, it doesn't run in my family. That only accounts for somewhere about 20% of all breast cancers. That's the single largest known risk factor we have, but here's something you can actually do something about because you can't change your parents. Lowered blood pressure. I'd see a lot of people want to get off their meds, and diet and exercise really are the way to get off your meds. So how do you lose weight? This is one of the most challenging things that you can do. When it comes down to it, when I talk to my patients, I think about the leading cause of death in our country right now is actually behavior. And most people don't think of it that way. Technically it's heart disease, heart attacks, things along those lines, but that gets down to behavior. And diabetes plays a role in that, and now obesity plays a role in that. Smoking also plays a role in lung cancer. So if you take out all those behavior things, they're things that we're doing. These aren't things where you can go to the doctor and expect the doctor to fix it. These are things that we as a society are doing to ourselves. So what I'm talking about is how do you change your lifestyle permanently? It really helps to think of things in positive terms. It helps to surround yourself with supportive people. This is how Weight Watchers works. So, if you come in and last week was tough, you were at Thanksgiving and you ate the 4,500 calorie option and you gained a pound that week, instead of thinking of it as a failure, you say, okay, I've gained weight before and I know how to lose it. The principles are the same. You just get right back at it and you go after it the same way you had lost it in the first place. If you choose a specific diet, the radical diets don't have long-term effectiveness. And so, you can eat grapefruit every day for 6 weeks, but guess what? After, 3 weeks, you're gonna really crave ice cream, and once the diet is over, most people scrap it and they go back to the lifestyle they had beforehand. I've had patients that have gone through surgery that have done the same thing, where they go back to the lifestyle beforehand. But changing lifestyle is one of the hardest things that we can ask you to do. And more importantly, you have to ask yourself to do it. If you do go with any of the formal diets, a lot of people get really revved up and they get really excited about the beginning part, and they're doing the Atkins diet or they're doing the South Beach diet, but they don't read the last few chapters of the book. And those are the most important because that's what's going to get you through next year, the year after that. And any one of those diets actually works. Again, the one that's good for you is the one that you can do and the one that you can stick with. Okay, so we're going to set attainable goals. If you still have your wedding dress, maybe you should get rid of it. Especially if you still have your prom dress. Set a goal. 10 pounds over 2 months is actually reasonable, so that's roughly a pound a week. And when you reach that 10 pounds of weight loss, think about how much better you feel. That's what empowers you. And the better you feel, the easier it is then to lose the next 10 pounds. I will tell you that if you weigh 400 pounds and you go running a mile, you actually will burn more than 100 calories because you are spending a lot more energy just carrying the weight around. So if you're in that extreme obesity range, exercise plays a bigger role and you will lose it faster initially and then it'll kind of slow down a little bit. Once you're at a normal healthy weight, stop. So this, sometimes I see people that, they'll come in and they're actually in a normal weight, tends to be more women than men, but they say, I just want to lose weight. I can't help you get less than normal. And then I start asking questions too about eating disorder kind of stuff, which is a very real problem. So I actually love eating. I love eating at restaurants. One of the things I really like about this part of the state is that the restaurants here are kind of easy for me to avoid.
Yeah, there's just a couple.
Because there aren't a whole lot of healthy options here. I'm not going to name names, but you can, so before you even start eating, it actually does pay to get a doggy bag, or my wife and I often will split, we'll get one entree and we'll split that with each other. If you get the doggy bag before and you put it aside, that really cuts down the alcohol you drink beforehand. If you're going to a Mexican restaurant, the chips beforehand can just blow it out of the water. You can easily hit 1,000 calories in the chips before your meal even gets there. Oh, chips and a margarita. It's completely fine to order off the appetizer menu. Tend to be smaller portions. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And the buffets is a really big thing. We're value centered, right? We want to not spend a lot of money and get a lot of value for it. When you're staring at a buffet and you're kind of full, but you already paid that money, and they've got ice cream at the end of the buffet, it's hard to find a healthy buffet. It's hard to not blow your whole calorie budget for the week. And if you're trying to lose 3,500 calories per week, you can actually blow that in one meal. Well, the Thanksgiving meal, for instance. Yeah. So I'm a physician, so we got to talk about medicines, right? There are just a few medicines that have been shown to help people lose weight. This is all, and I say all this with just a little bit of trepidation. The long-term effectiveness of medicines is actually very terrible. All of these studies that support these medicines are done with everybody doing the foundation of the treatment, of the pyramid treatment, which is diet and exercise. They're meeting with nutritionists. When they do the research, they give one group of people placebo pills, and they give another group the actual medicine, and then they follow their weight loss. And on average, these medicines are looking at 5 to maybe 10 pounds of weight loss in over the placebo pills over maybe a 3-month time period. And the vast majority of research shows that a year down the road, they made no difference at all. So very short-term answer for what I consider to be an extremely long-term problem. Also, some of the meds scare me a little bit. The first one there is phentermine. This is an amphetamine medicine. It is potentially addictive. It requires a lot of rigmarole to prescribe it, and only in small amounts. It also, I'm sure many people here have heard of fen-phen. That was a medicine that was coming up when I was doing my training, and it was going to save everybody's lives. This obesity epidemic was coming down the road, but as it turned out, fen-phen caused some very major heart issues. And if anybody's ever taken it and they haven't told their doc, you should, because there's some screening heart tests that we should do for anybody that's ever taken that in the past. This diethylpropion, that's similar to, it's actually an antidepressant medication, also considered addictive. The last one on there, that one's available over the counter, and that's a medicine. For a while they actually put it in food. This one actually will bind, it will glue onto the fat that you ate. So if you want to eat fat and you take this, the two come together, and then it makes it so your body can't pull that into your blood system. But guess what? Fat's got to go somewhere, and this causes a lot of gas and diarrhea, which makes people not want to take it. So I guess in my book it's easier just not to eat the fat in the first place. But they made I think it was Lay's potato chips with this stuff, which nobody really bought, because it caused gas and diarrhea. This isn't just. It causes incontinence too. So not only do you have gas and diarrhea, but you're pooping your pants. So there are some surgical options out there, and I'm moving up the pyramid. These are kind of the top of the pyramid options. This is when you've tried everything else and you're doing everything else. This is a procedure called the lap band, and this is a stomach. So this little band here is put around the stomach, and there's this little port that goes underneath your skin that gets filled from time to time with salt water. And as they fill it, that band is like a donut, and it squeezes your stomach smaller. And what this basically does is, if you eat more than what your stomach can contain, you feel uncomfortable. You get heartburn, and it's just not pleasant. Again, a lot of people, I'm sure people know, either they've had this themselves or they know people that have had this. This does result in weight loss. When I say it results in weight loss, it's not just walk in, have the surgery, and go home. So if you're looking at these options, it's about all the work that you do before and after that actually results in the weight loss. This is just one little thing to kind of get you up over the hump. So this is a lot of follow-ups afterwards, and a lot of meeting with the dietitian and the nutritionist, and really paying attention again to not putting as many calories in your body. There are potential complications with this. So this can cut into your stomach. I did see that once, so it can erode a hole into your stomach. Sometimes these will, on their own, they'll slide. So if it slides up here, it's not going to be doing anything. And sometimes they do come apart. If you have one of these and it's giving you trouble, it is possible to remove it. And then this is this is the granddaddy of surgeries. This is the gastric bypass. And this one literally takes your small intestine and cuts it here, and takes this cut part and sews it up to the top part of your stomach. So what's happening here, and they also sew off this part of your stomach. So your stomach ends up being the size of about a little bit smaller than 2 tablespoons. That's what a meal becomes after you've had the gastric bypass. All of the acid and all the other juices that are produced along here, they still have to have somewhere to go, so they get dumped into your small intestine downstream here. But what's happening is, when the food comes in, it's not being absorbed through all of this small intestine, so that it goes through here, and your body just has to have enough time to pull the calories out. So you're eating a whole lot smaller meal, and it's going to run through your intestines a lot faster. Potential side effects from this one, a lot of people have what's called dumping syndrome. So when the food gets in, it doesn't get absorbed, and within 20 minutes or half hour they're on the toilet and their food's coming out undigested. There are a lot of pretty critical vitamins and nutrients that are absorbed along here, iron and vitamin B12 in particular. So once you have this done, you have to have that monitored for the rest of your life. There are ways to replace those. Also, when you take pills, often pills are activated in your stomach and they're absorbed all the way along here. Well, if you've had this done and you take a pill, it might go all the way through and may not even get absorbed. So a lot of times after this procedure, you need higher doses of medicines to get the same effect. This actually is an outstanding treatment for diabetes. So if you have diabetes and obesity, this can lower your sugar as much as just about anything else we have. Of course, much riskier, but much greater reward too. On average, this lowers your body mass index by about 16 points. So that's a considerable amount of weight loss. That's looking at 85 to 90 pounds on average. This is more an option. Oh, and insurance companies have guidelines on this. So your body mass index usually has to be in the 40 to 45 or higher range. That's another thing. People come in and say, I want the surgery, and their body mass index is 32 or 33. Well, the risk of surgery isn't worth it at that point. And then by all means, don't gain weight so that you can get the surgery. I actually have had that happen more than once. The problem with doing the surgeries is this one is basically permanent. There are ways to reverse it, but it never quite gets fully reversed the way that it was beforehand. The most common reason to reverse this is for actually low blood sugars, because the food isn't being absorbed and it's not getting into your blood system. So if you walk away from here with one concept, this is what matters. Move more and eat smarter. And of those two, the eating smarter is by far where the bulk of your efforts are going to pay off. I've had people say, well, my back hurts, I can't exercise. And honestly, I had a patient in the nursing home who was so obese he could no longer get out of bed. And I had kind of a pretty serious talk with this gentleman. Is this where you want to spend the remainder of your life? And he's in a nursing home. He had a nutritionist, somebody that could meet with him on a regular basis. He had a lot of positive support. The nurses were on board. The nursing home respects your autonomy. So if you order, takeout pizza and somebody delivers it, they're going to give it to you because it's your choice. So this gentleman lost almost 50 pounds and was able to walk again without doing any exercise at all. He could not get out of bed. Okay, so that's it for my formal talk.